everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to write a novel, but specifically for first-time novelists. So we've talked about how to write a novel in other videos, but specifically this video is geared towards beginners for those who are attempting their first novel. As a first-time novelist, there are probably different things you need to consider because you may not have the confidence or experience to intuit your way through the book quite yet. Everyone needs to start somewhere, so hopefully these pieces of guidance will make your journey through your first novel a little easier. Tip number 1, know these things before you start. Different writers will do a different amount of pre-planning, but I would recommend at least identifying these things. Your main character's external goal and internal motivation, the inciting incident, which is the event that kickstarts the story, kind of like the thing that tips the dominoes, the forces of antagonism, so everything that stands in your character's way, preventing them from getting what they want, and the stakes, so what does the character stand to lose if they fail. You may do more thorough outlining, but I would recommend at least identifying these things because they're the core building blocks of a story, and if one of these things is missing, you may find yourself getting stuck fairly soon because your story doesn't have the fuel needed to propel it. Tip number 2. Don't overcomplicate. A lot of writers are really drawn to this idea of writing something really complex, but I think it can be kind of dangerous when writers, especially new writers, equate complexity with good. Complexity can be a huge sign of skill, but it's not the only sign that a book is good, and as a beginner, I would focus more on a simple plot development rather than diving right into something with like 8 point of view characters. The story will complicate as it needs to complicate. The more you write, the more complexity will emerge where needed, but I wouldn't set out with this goal and bite off more than you can chew. Tip number 3, get in late. One of the most common mistakes that new writers, and honestly just novelists in general, make is starting the story at the wrong place, and typically they start too early, far before the story has actually begun, and there's a lot of meandering to get to the actual inciting incident. Start the story as late as possible. Aim to have your inciting incident within the first chapter if you can. Tip number 4, make sure each scene accomplishes something new. Another really common thing that new writers will do is just meander a lot. There will be a lot of meandering and a lot of scenes that don't really contribute, and to be honest, the thing about that is the more you write meandering scenes that don't contribute, the harder the writing will get because you're diverting away from the story's fuel. So keep in mind that every scene should accomplish a new purpose. If you're writing a scene that accomplishes the same purpose as a previous scene, you probably don't need it. You're repeating a beat. So try to make sure that you're progressing the story to a new plot point or a new purpose with every single scene. Tip number 5, develop a consistent unit for your book's chapters. One really easy way to control your book's pacing is to understand what a chapter is in your book and use that consistently. Chapters mean different things in different books. Some books will have 1-page chapters, others will have 100-page chapters. So a chapter isn't really a set unit. It depends on the book. So figure out what a chapter means in your book. Maybe you're writing a fantasy quest book and you decide that in every chapter, the main character will face a different obstacle. Or maybe you're writing a mystery. Maybe in each chapter, you're going to have the main character investigate a new lead. This will give you a clear understanding of the smaller units of your chapter are, and you can use those things consistently in order to have consistent pacing. Tip number 6, set small, achievable goals. Now, I don't recommend daily word counts to everyone, but as a new writer, one of the biggest problems you will probably face is finding a way to keep yourself on track and actually finish the book. Starting a book is very easy. Finishing a book is a lot more difficult, so you probably want to find some way to keep yourself on track. Set very small but very consistent goals. If your goals are too ambitious, it's likely that you'll push yourself to reach them at the beginning, feel great because you're reaching them, then start to lose momentum after a couple weeks, feel like writing is extremely hard, and then give up because you're no longer meeting your goals. So set really low goals if you're gonna have any kind of daily or weekly word count. In fact, weekly is probably better as a new writer, since writing every day can be hard to maintain. Set that word goal to be very, very low. You may even want to give yourself some kind of reward for reaching it to motivate you. Tip number 7, brace for getting stuck. I'll warn you right now, you're going to get stuck probably multiple times throughout writing your book. A very common pattern for new novelists is to start writing their book, be really strong right out of the gate, be like, man, writing a book is so easy, I can do this, and then get maybe about 20,000 words in, maybe 10 to 20,000 words, and then start to run out of momentum, start to get frustrated, be like, wait a second, this is super hard, and give up. I think this is a very common but somewhat underreported phenomenon, and I think it's because at this point in the book, you run out of new things to introduce, and now you have to just make stuff happen. It's often said the beginning is the hardest part, and I think this actually sets new writers up to fail because I actually think for most people, the beginning is the easiest part. And so when new writers who've always been told the beginning, facing the blank page, is the hardest part, when they start writing and it's actually the easiest part of the book, they then go, wow, this is supposed to be the hardest part, the rest will be smooth sailing. Writing a novel is a very long, difficult task, so I can tell you right now, you're going to get stuck. Everyone gets stuck. What matters is having the perseverance to get through the tough parts and actually get yourself unstuck. So don't go in with the expectation that it will be easy all the way throughout. You will get stuck, you will have writer's block, you will lose motivation. It is a long journey and it is a big up and down, so you just kind of have to brace for those low periods, find a way to persevere through them. Now, along with that, tip 8, when you get stuck, return to the base elements of your story. You know those basic elements I outlined at the beginning? A character with clear goals, an inciting incident, stakes, and forces of antagonism. If something is stuck, the problem might be with one of the base elements of your story. Maybe you've got your character in a situation where you're forcing them to act in a way that actually doesn't fit their internal goal. Go back to those basic elements of story, ask yourself what's meant to be there, and maybe something is misaligned. A lot of the time when you get stuck, it's because the underlying elements that build your story have kind of been misaligned, and you're trying to make things happen in the book that don't actually align with what you've set up. Tip number 9, find a community or buddy. It can be really hard to get through a whole book on your own, so try to find someone else who's doing the same thing as you, ideally another first-time novelist. I definitely recommend trying a challenge like NaNoWriMo if you're new. NaNoWriMo, or National Novel Writing Month, a challenge where writers try to write a whole book in November, is what helped me finish my first novel and can connect you with a lot of different writers. But just trying to find some kind of friend, some kind of community, if there are any local writing groups, can be super helpful to give you some motivation and just not feel so lonely. Along with that, we also actually now have a Discord if you want to connect with new writers, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. I'll leave some other videos geared towards new writers in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time, bye!